I think we're live.
Yes, we are live.
Excellent.
Wow, thank you, Brent. We even have a sound booth, a DJ in here. All right, this is Enzo Silva here. I'm a senior instructional designer and learning strategist. I currently work at SAP, and I have known these guys here for a while from different industry events and all that, so I respect their opinion, their expertise, and everything they have to share. And Craig and I especially, we had started doing some hangouts very informally. We called it open mic Google Learning Hangouts, where we have like a set
behind
thing.
us. Yeah.
Hello, Craig.
Hey.
And so we just started discussing some topics and trends and stuff like that, and we decided just to make it more of a commitment to do it more periodically. And we got Brent in here, who also started some very interesting hangouts and discussions there online, and he's a thought leader in the field, and I think this will be an exciting one for us.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thanks for including me in your Google Hangout fun.
Man, that should have been my title, thought leader. That's what I'm going to put at the lower
thought
third.
Leader.
Lower third to work.
I don't know.
The most beloved title.
Yeah, there's some bad connotations around that whole thought leader thing.
Right.
Let's not go there.
All right, Craig, leave my thoughts now.
Okay, so that's probably my job description at this point. So I'm pretty excited about this. I know, like Enzo was saying, we've been talking about this for a while, and I'm really excited to be working with Brent. Brent is like someone always at the edges of things. Actually, we met for the first time at DevLearn, I think, face to face.
I believe so. Yeah.
Like very briefly.
Yeah.
But like we've been talking for literally years. Like you're part of the.
So this most recent DevLearn, was that your first?
That was my first DevLearn. Yes, my first DevLearn and my first time to Vegas, actually.
Oh wow, that's okay.
Yeah. So it was very new for me. Everything was new.
Outstanding.
I was staying at the Tropicana and then walking down the strip to the Bellagio, so I got to see a lot of construction.
Construction. I thought you were going to say something else. We would have to censor this hangout now.
Is that what we're calling now? Is construction?
It's PG-13 here.
It's a family-friendly. No, it's not. It's not a family-friendly. I think that's a good establishing rule. We're going to talk about learning. So it's a good establishing rule. We're setting the ground rules for this hangout on air. I'd say one of the founding rules is if we have to go blue, as suggested by Brent's background, we should go blue in the service of learning technology education. I think that's
and keep Vegas in Vegas as well.
And yeah, what happens in Vegas, or as that shirt worn by the Saltbox guys said, what was it? What happens in Vegas is tracked via the XAPI. Yeah.
Oh man.
We don't have the verb set for like table dancing or.
We're gonna take that for the next show.
Right. That'll be a community of practice for the Experience API. We'll start in 2015. All right.
I'm so happy to see that that's where the Experience API is going.
Oh yeah, you have no idea. Like we got the IEEE on it, but you're thinking it's going to be about space landing. No, it's going to be about table dancing. It'll be about.
That makes me really. It's a comforting thing to know.
This is how you get to an open standard. I feel like the people at Open Badges could take a page from our book. That's all I'm saying.
Very nice. Can't wait.
Yeah. So I think at least what I hope for from this group is to get people in to talk about just aspects of learning technology that I think a lot of us, when the three of us, we go to a lot of events. And we hear things, we talk to people, and we'll meet new people, and we'll briefly get to talk to them. But I don't think when we're referring media and experiences to people so they can catch up on learning technology, I don't feel like there's really a good running learning technology or even e-learning podcast outside of the e-learning coach and then the podcast that Brian DeSablon and Judy Katz used to do. Holy crap! What was the name of that? What was the name of the podcast?
It was something about beer, wasn't it? I liked it.
No, it's something about beer. No, it wasn't. It was the toolbar. No, the reason you think it's about beer is because literally a beer featured in every episode. Actually, like 2 or 3.
2 beers, 1 or 3 if they had a guest.
Oh, yeah, 1 for the guest and then 1 for each of the hosts. Right, exactly. So
why did they stop?
Why did they? Yeah, I don't know. First of all, they're going to kill me because I forgot the name of their podcast at first. I was actually on an episode, which I really, really enjoyed. I'm sure time got in the way. For the same reason. They
probably joined AA somewhere.
They probably.
Let's cut that.
You're right.
Everybody gets busy, So
no. I mean, that's why we're doing this for the first time again, so to speak. Now,
since what, 2012 or 11, whatever, we did it sporadically here and there.
Yeah, I want to say I was like, I'm trying to think if that was 1 or 2 jobs ago. I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, when I was, particularly when I was in at DevLearn, talking to people who were looking for more media, more immediate information, more experiences where they could participate and hear people discuss things that were current. There was a lot of there's the Learn Chat, things that are going on Twitter, but I think Brent, for example, I know you have some feelings about video as kind of the next frontier in this sort of thing.
Yeah, I will. I mean, Is it that obvious? Do I talk about it that much?
Do you do it that much? Look, the guy has a blue screen behind him.
Yeah, right. He's like, let me just put this up. But, oh man, this is already. I feel. He's got special effects ready or something. I don't.
Yeah, so, your room is really bad.
This is how high tech that is. That's a Snuggie behind me, nailed up to the wall.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. It was better than the pink behind it, so we're good. But I think video's great. I think a lot of what we're doing. Of course, I guess I'm a little biased because my first career was in broadcast television, and so I produced some shows and did news broadcasts and news production. And I'll be for a small affiliate, but I still got a taste for what what it was like, and then did a lot of independent video productions and whatnot. And so I've always kind of had this bent towards video as being a very fun, creative outlet. And when I started doing instructional design, there was always this thing in the back of my head saying, we used to create 3 1-hour TV shows every single day. Why is it that these instructional designers have to take 6 months to create content?
Yeah.
What's the deal?
Yeah.
So it's always and I get it, I know why, but it's just I've always wondered that there's got to be an easier way to get content out there, and once technology like Google Plus and Skype and all that came around, and all the different web conferencing tools, it just became very obvious to me. I mean, I think I've got some other thoughts on just regular video, but for me, I like this format a lot better than sort of the current state of like the Twitter chats and whatnot. I think they're great, but I kind of feel like a Twitter chat on its own has sort of run its course.
I feel like it's a good introduction, especially if you're building a personal learning network. It's a really good way to kind of have like a scattershot. I mean, if you think of Twitter as a cocktail party, I think that's the metaphor we all use. It's a great way to just get in the middle of a room and hear people talk and riff off stuff and retweet and favorite and follow up when people follow people and then read up on this stuff. Establish that PLN or that base of experts that you can follow and learn from. But you're right. I was just saying this the other day that I recommend Learn Chat and Chat to Learn and a lot of the other ones to people, but I very rarely jump in them now. Not because I don't think they're any good. It's just that there's a point at which I don't want to echo chamber necessarily, but at the same time, like even if I'm contributing, because as Enzo can tell you, I love to talk. Even if I'm like massively contributing, I want there to be a bit more in terms of what can be consumed and et cetera. So like this is a really cool opportunity for me to kind of do that sort of thing. I'm also now acting as the moderator for the e-learning subreddit. So on Reddit, so I'm
cool.
Really, so I've been really mindful lately of getting content or kind of drawing people's attention to things and figuring, okay, how can we bring something to people where they're looking for help, and where we can actually deliver something to them where they can actually consume it and then turn around and use it in their daily lives. So, yeah.
I haven't read it yet.
Oh, you haven't been on Reddit yet? Are you kidding me? So I was a jerk.
Check it out.
Yeah, at DevLearn, I meant to meet with a bunch of people from the e-learning and the instructional design subreddits, but I just never did. I never got it together because I was just doing the Experience API track the whole time. So I don't know. Reddit meetups are usually pretty legendary. So I don't know. Maybe at some future large e-learning instructional design event we'll pull it off.
Yeah, that's the one thing that we haven't gotten connected with yet is the whole Reddit thing. I haven't.
It's sort of under the. Well, I will definitely be this group's ambassador to Reddit now that I'm a moderator of something, which was pretty weird. I was just like, hey, is anyone moderating here? It's like, no, not really. It's like, okay, cool.
That's cool. I think to piggyback on your Twitter is the cocktail party. I think things like Hangouts are the barbecue, where you get more intimate with a couple of people, just a few friends. It's like the barbecue. I like it.
I'll have to think a little bit more on that, but I like it. I think there's more we can do. I think we can just go deeper in this type of exchange, right? It's obviously the 100, like you were saying, Craig, the 140 characters is great for just kind of like dipping your toe in and listening to some of the experts that are out there and hearing some of their comments and to kind of gauge your own thoughts on, let's see, am I really, is my thinking in line with this group of people, and you can kind of gauge and you can get connected with folks informally, say hi, meet new people and whatnot. But at a certain point, the level I want to get to be perfectly honest, is actually talking tactics and details with people, right? There's so much in our industry of conversations around we should be more social, and we should, learning should be more social, and learning should be more mobile, and that level up of theory and thinking about it, and there's a lot of why we should do all of those things, and I think those conversations are great, but I think we're kind of at a point with technology these days where I think it's time to start getting into the weeds a little bit, into the trenches, and talk to the folks that are actually out there in the trenches trying to do all of this stuff and get some real stories on, what's really causing problems and why can't you do this or why can't you do that or how did you solve this problem and really get a lot more, detail around just how to make this stuff happen.
I agree, and that's why whenever we go to an event or stuff and things like that, there's a great, there's use for, of course, that there's a need for the more theoretical tracks as well. But I think the magic really happens is when you get the people that put that theory into practice by really doing something, and they're sharing what they're doing, and I think that's the value here. And in a candid place where we're amongst friends here, other professionals in the field, let's share what we are doing, what we're struggling with, right? Let's get more social. What does that really mean? What are you doing in social media? Does your company have an internal tool? How are you doing? Are you trying to flip the classroom, by supplementing that with some social activities outside of the classroom, and then the classroom time is? How are you doing that instead of just talking? We're flipping the classroom. Well, how are you doing that? What technologies are you using? What are the steps that you do to design it and to develop it? And
I think it's also you bring up those are several good points, Enzo. I also think it's really important for the source from whom you're getting that information to not be necessarily trying to sell you something. So one of the things I've noticed right now, especially in moderation of our e-learning, is that I'm getting some really great entries there from a particular vendor. And so I don't want to get rid of those entries because they're actually adding value to the forum. But as a matter of course, people who are presenting how-to data coming from a standpoint strictly of I represent this particular company. I mean, we've all had that situation. I think we all have our own. We all come from certain concerns, but we also independently have thoughts about the industry and how things work. And one of the and I think kind of to what you guys were saying earlier, one of the magical things, actually Enzo was saying, one of the magical things about going to an event is that you can hear from people directly, right? So they may have given a presentation. I think a good example is Sean Putman at DevLearn. His presentation on XAPI for the non-developer. It was a huge hit, and part of the reason it was a huge hit is that he was really, he was excellent instructional design in terms of the way he structured his presentation. But at the end, people could talk to him. Like, he said, "Hey, I'm not a developer. I did this for me, just to figure it out, and here you can have all this stuff for free. This is just what I did to get by." He was totally open and honest, and that really inspired me, actually. I was like, I want to be able to do that kind of thing, in my work, kind of, if people have questions, that we can, provide them with information in an honest manner or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Without bias.
I think that, even if the
bias anyway.
What people are sharing, maybe they're afraid to share because they work for a company. Like, for example, I work for Success Factors, right? We have an LMS product, we have a social media product, and Brent, same thing. You ADL. I guess many people are doing things with their own tools, and sometimes because of the whole I don't like vendors type of deal mentality, then they feel a little bit afraid to share. But are they going to think I'm trying to sell something? But I don't think, for me, I tend to filter that, and I think, if you're sharing something that you are doing, it's practical, you're using your tools, I don't care. There's probably principles there that I can bring into the tools that I have, that I use, and I can apply that to my situation. So if we're talking about Twitter, maybe I have Yammer, but the principle is the same. Using that for
I will fight you about that. Twitter and Yammer, they're not. Sir, I challenge you.
I challenge you.
I would not let that stand.
I see you have a preference there.
I do. Well, it's not even preference. You know what? We'll save that for another episode. We'll keep that beef here. We'll let that cook. So actually, I wanted to get into some of the subject matter that we were talking about before we got on air, and that's about massively open online courses. And Enzo and I, we've talked about this before on air, I think, like many moons ago. So I think there's a lot of things have happened since then. I kind of want to talk a little bit about our feelings about MOOCs and kind of the way forward in this new learning data or learning analytics atmosphere that we find ourselves in now. There was a quote I read earlier today where someone was saying, "Don't talk about MOOCs as courses because that's a slippery slope towards creating a thing that doesn't hybridize but colonizes." That was said at a University of Wisconsin MOOC conference, I think, that's going on right now, which was a pretty interesting. Meaning that, yeah, go ahead.
Don't talk about MOOCs as courses, but that is in the actual name of it, right? Massively open online course.
Yes, exactly. So I guess my initial question, if we're going to kind of frame this sort of thing, are we thinking too archaically about MOOCs? And if so, and this is sort of kind of a leading question, if we're thinking too archaically, what, how? Like how, in what way is that affecting the success of MOOCs?
I'll just add my 2 cents on it. I think there's been a lot of successful MOOCs. I think the original idea was good. I think it was a good attempt at doing something better than the physical classroom. But I think the what's the word I'm looking for? I think
execution.
Well, maybe not the execution, but I think just the fatal flaw of it in general, and I think they were flawed from the start because of what we just mentioned. It's still thought of as a course, right? Everything is still thinking about it, and it's, in essence, it still follows the same traditional structure of your standard course. Yes, there's lots of flexibility and there's lots of different things you can do with it, and obviously, having 1,000 people taking and going through content or attending stuff at the same time has value that's different than a classroom, yes, and the new tools allow you to connect to all of those people. I get it, but I just think in general, the idea of being social and social learning, I recently had a conversation with somebody. I think it was a DevLearn, and it's I'm starting to think a lot more nowadays that the real disruption in that space needs to occur when the community starts as a community, right? And and the community is formed around the topic, whether it's a career, a skill set, I don't know, a field of study or something like that. But I think the community needs to form first, and from the community, within the community, I guess I should say, there will be some structure and maybe a hierarchy. I kind of harken back to the days of the apprentice and mentorship style, and if you find an interest in something, you get into one of these communities and you just start listening and you start learning, and maybe you find a mentor in the community and you start to do specific activities. I don't know. I mean,
it sounds kind of like it sounds like what you're advocating, and by the way, I think Etienne Wenger would be totally on board with what you're talking about. It sounds like what you're advocating is more of a community of practice around things with a constellation of content. So, okay, so this begs
maybe it's not a constellation of content, but of context, right?
Okay.
And of intent, right? You have a bunch of like-minded folks who have the same intent on learning something, or they have a passion about a particular topic, right? And the content is born from that.
I think we are at a similar place that we were with the whole Web 2.0 thing. Notice nobody talks about Web 2.0 anymore because it's just an evolution of web. It's a state of the web. It evolved more into something that's more dynamic with APIs, blah, 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 and all that. From a technology and from allowing people to communicate better and more immediately, right? Now, to be very concise, but the same thing with MOOCs. I think the MOOCs are just what we see in MOOCs, besides the fact that they started, what started this trend, I guess, is the idea that universities and other institutions opened their courses to everybody, so they're massively open. I think the biggest advantage of the way we see MOOCs, or things that people are labeling MOOCs, and I think we all make the mistake of labeling everything MOOC nowadays, is it's how the content is structured and how that information is structured. It gives the learner more control of where they're at within the context of that learning map, or that course, if you will. But I think it's just an evolution of how or a different way that e-learning just evolved into that format. It's just an e-learning format, really. I don't think there's much new there, unless it really is open.
That's an interesting statement, Enzo, that MOOCs as we know them, or as we're kind of conceptualizing them, is a new, under a different e-learning, or is under the e-learning umbrella. So honestly, I feel like we need to have another episode entirely to talk about what is e-learning. What is that?
It's funny that you say that, because I was just thinking that and had the conversation with somebody about, it's been a long time since we've had just a conversation, or I've written a blog post or anything on, just where is it today? That term, what is it, and what exactly are we talking about? I think that's
actually, honestly, I was just saying there's a wiki that I need to start up on the subreddit, and that's going to have to be one of the things. What are we even talking about?
Do it, yes. Yeah. And I think the whole thing with the MOOC too is we love to attach labels to things, right? So besides it being open, it's a buzzword, right? If a course is massively open, it is a massively open course. Let's call it a massively open course. But we came up with something called MOOC that now defines how. Because people are talking about the death of the LMS and all that kind of stuff, which there's no death of the LMS.
It's still alive.
But what happened is we're labeling the evolution of the LMS MOOC, because what we see is the learner is able to add some social aspect to the learning in there, inside of what we used to call a course, that is a locked-in authoring tool package, SCORM type of tool, this type of package there. You take it, you're done. Now we're able to put more discussions and things like that in a progression, where the learner sees where they're at, where they're moving on to. They can see what they checked and what they didn't check and all that kind of stuff, and receive feedback from their peers and all that. It's an evolution of the LMS, really, that what we're all calling MOOCs, I think. It's a half-baked idea here.
It can be. Well, so the learning management system, I mean, not to get, man, that's another, we got like the next 10 episodes lined up right now. The LMS. Let's talk about it. But the LMS, that's an interesting way to look at it. I feel like the evolution of the LMS could even be traced to, repurposing of things like WordPress or even SharePoint to handle some of the functions that a learning management system traditionally does. But I think with MOOCs, I feel like MOOCs are actually, kind of to track back to something we said earlier, I feel like they are the victims of expectations. So, one of you were talking about the fact that, like one of the attraction points is that they're massively open. It's like, well, okay, there's a company that I used to work with which had their own version of MOOCs. I think they were called Epics, and I can't remember what Epic stood for, but I think the E stood for exclusive and P for personal. I can't remember what else. But the idea was like, yeah, it's like a MOOC, but like you now have like 10,000 people because that's crazy to moderate that and be able to control and kind of get to every student and provide the kind of support that you want to do in a blended learning, in a real blended learning situation, or even totally online. So one, I think. And part of that expectation has to do with the selling point. Like as you were saying earlier, and so like kind of the popularity comes from universities saying they're going to share their stuff online. Well, that's cool, but to do that, like there's something lost necessarily unless you change your. And this is the key. This is where I want to go next with this conversation. Unless you change the way that you design your instructional experience, right? You have a different manner of things happening. How do you change your instructional design for MOOCs so that it's not based on the archaic structure of a course and therefore doomed to fail?
Yeah, I think a big deal, I think there's one advantage to the whole fad of MOOCs is the idea of people are finally chunking content. They're finally making videos short and adding for real some social into that thing. It helps you frame your mind. So you're going to do a MOOC. What do you have to think of? Are you going to put 50-hour-long videos there in that whole thing? So people, it sets.
Well, 6 minutes. 6 minutes is the limit supposedly due to research. Like 6-minute videos, that stops.
I think my limit is probably 30 seconds. But what were we talking about again? People are finally. I think that's a big advantage. At least it's helping people. I don't know if it's mythical or what, but at least people have that expectation. Oh, a MOOC has to have a series of videos, so I need to chunk this better. Blah blah blah, and I'm going to have lessons and all, etc. At least we have some expectations set there as to what it should look like or behave like. Now, whether that's a linear experience or not or whatever, I think there are some advantages to seeing and that that helps people see their design better.
Yeah, it's definitely got MOOCs have elements, right? It's definitely an evolution, like you were saying, right? It's an evolution of where things are going. I don't necessarily think that where they're at right now is the end game.
I don't think so at all.
And unfortunately, there are a lot of people thinking black and white about this and trying to put some formality around what a MOOC is, defining it, and then training others on how to do it, right? Before you can even get other people and to do stuff and to expand it, you got to standardize it. Well, once that happens, then it starts to spread that that's the only way you can do it and all of that, and it's so much more of just an evolution of where we're going with things than an actual end game. It's I don't know. I guess that's the part that concerns me. I think they're great. I think in certain situations they're valuable, but to think that the MOOC is a thing and that's the brand and that's what we're going to go with.
That's what happens with our buzzwords in this industry, and kind of to what Enzo was saying earlier about us loving, buzzwords and acronyms. I feel like honestly, if the MOOC is like a fledgling bird, I feel like it hatched too early. I feel like there's a lot more just people need to tinker around with it and just like, low stress situations. Honestly, you know what I would love to teach? I would love to teach in 2015, and maybe I'll get down to this, is let's have a MOOC, not a MOOC, but basically a MOOC workshop. How to design MOOCs. How to do it so that you're creating something, and this is the hook. The hook will be, and I guess I'm giving my secret away right now, so hopefully no one's watching. Oh yeah, so like the hook for people would be like, hey, how to design a MOOC, and people are like, oh, I want to know how to do that because I want to step my game up and put stuff on the resume. But I don't want to teach them how to make a MOOC. I want to teach them how to think about creating learning ecosystems. The kind that can be integrated by and created by organically even for communities of practice, right? Because I feel like in the workplace, that's actually.
I think I hear what you're saying, and what started me thinking while you were going through and talking about this was, it really feels to me like the MOOC is an evolution towards what we're all calling our personal learning network.
Yes.
Right? I mean, really, if you think about it, right now we think about it as two extremely different things, right? Your personal learning network is just, like a network of old. But really, when you decide and make a choice to hang out with a certain group of people or include a certain, group of folks who are passionate about a certain topic, and you call them your part of your PLN, really what you're doing is saying, I want to be a member of this particular community of folks who like to talk about a certain thing, right? And my personal PLN consists of many different types of people from many different types of backgrounds, focused on many different things, but at the end of the day, everything that they bring to the table adds value to what I do and from what I learn. And so, maybe they're going to collide in the middle somewhere. Maybe what we're calling the PLN on one side, we actually start to realize, wow, this is actually a thing. It's not just, it's not just like the old style network, but it actually is a valuable thing that we can put maybe structure, maybe content around, or teach people how to be better at it. And then the formality of schools and education are, as we watch this evolution through the MOOCs, maybe the two start to meet. And
exactly, it's a collision of. I think it's a collision of the informal and the personal learning networks there. So I call it Plucks.
Yeah. You're right.
Okay. Do we need to trademark that, or?
It's one of those things where everybody talks about it, right? We talk about informal learning versus formal learning, but nobody really knows exactly what the difference is, or what it is, or what it's going to be, I guess I should say, because this stuff is so fluid, and just depending upon which particular technology grabs hold and who creates something that people can latch on to, you just don't really know. So, but yeah, I think at a really high level, we can see those two, those two ideas starting to come closer together, and with each iteration of MOOCs and with more conversations around personal learning networks, we can finally see maybe a little glimpse of what the future looks like.
Well, so how do we change, as people who are supposedly design learning experiences, or at least facilitate them, and then get out of the way so it can happen, and then improve performance. That's where this is all about, I think, all over the place. Like, how do we change, or do we change the way that we design or plan to incorporate what MOOCs represent? Because now we're just deconstructing it. But how do we incorporate what MOOCs represent into our arsenal? How do you do that?
Enzo, you want to?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Do we need to change? Do we need a different instructional design model or something for that? I don't think we do. I think we just go back to the basics of instructional design, of what good instructional design is.
Yeah.
And a lot of what we're saying, or what we see there, what we're doing here now, Hangouts, that could be easily considered a MOOC. It's a massively open. It's open to anybody on the web.
No, at that point we're like stretching. We're stretching the definition of MOOC.
That's exactly where I'm getting at. So
Yeah.
what we need to do is come up with a common definition of what is that we're calling a MOOC, right? What is that ideal learning environment in that case, right? And we see a lot of trends there that are going. Is that the outline and you have short videos and you have social incorporated with that, discussions and all that kind of stuff, and easy tracking and all that. But that's all part of good instructional design. You're right. I think you're creating looking at what the need is. You're defining your goals, your objectives, and then you're creating the knowledge chunks based on that work that you did, that design work that you did, and then development. You find the right tool to achieve that that goal, to create that. So I don't really think we need a clearer definition of what a MOOC is or what people are expecting as MOOCs.
Well, do you guys think it matters if live, if synchronous portions or classes, even if they're online, are incorporated into a MOOC or a part of the MOOC's kind of salad, so to speak, or should a MOOC by definition be something that is almost entirely asynchronous?
Well, I think what we have to first try and kind of maybe redefine a little bit here is what exactly are we talking about from like which audiences of our industry are we talking about? Are we talking about higher education, or are we talking about corporate training, right?
Right. Well, does it matter that much between the two groups?
Yeah, absolutely. Because think of compliance, right? I mean, I don't think anybody's ever going to want to join the sexual harassment compliance MOOC, right? They just want to. I feel like the darn 30-minute or 2-hour, online course. They want to take the test and they want to get it over with because.
I feel like you've just thrown down a challenge. I'm going to make an attractive sexual harassment massively open online course.
There you go.
I'm going to do it.
I'm dropping the challenge on you, Craig. Go
All right.
Wow. All right. I want to see that.
Yeah, that's okay.
So first of all, the challenge is create it. Second of all is get it recognized as valid, as counting towards your sexual harassment training for your organization.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right? Yeah, you got to be able to check that.
I work for a smaller company now, so I might actually be able to get that to work. Because it's
you should add a little open badge, sexual harassment open badge to your profile.
And so you brought up something I wanted to talk about though. So one of the attractions of MOOCs is that it's on the same sort of collision course with tracking disparate events and experiences, and badges can be awarded to those. Do you guys see that as maybe one of the big drivers in trying to adopt MOOCs, especially from the higher education standpoint?
That's a tough one for me. I think there's value in that. I think the what do they call it now? MicroCredentials, micro-credentialing, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of value in that because since our the content we design and the need for smaller content is we know that's a trend, right? So we're all creating shorter micro content. So of course, a collection of micro credentials that actually become the foundation for a larger credential, I think is going to be definitely the future. So somebody can be have a whole bunch of micro credentials, but if you get, you say you got 10 of them, but let's say you do the whole package and you have 50 of them, then that's the equivalent of the next thing up.
Right. What you're describing right there is the idea of competency frameworks, right?
Yes.
So having all that laid out. I feel personally so open badges and MOOCs and the idea of competency frameworks as credentialing for real world activities or abilities to be recognized as X. Of course, the fourth part of that, and maybe I'm biased, is having something like the Experience API or some other way to sort of measure or communicate that information. Like those four things are kind of converging right now, and there's kind of like a web of expectations about those two. So while MOOCs are really popular right now, I feel like there's to some degree, there is pressure from these other areas, or at least attraction from these other areas, to try and bring them together to work together. So, although I haven't seen a lot of really good examples of this. I mean, I kind of hate to put this out there. I hope no one's going to get mad at me for saying this and be like, you forgot my solution. It was perfect. But I'm sorry, I can't.
Hey, listen, we're bumping right up against time, so I just want to.
Oh, we are. Sorry. Gosh.
No, that's okay. I want to make sure everybody's happy. I know I've got a couple things I have to run off and do, so I think we might want to.
Yeah, me too. Unfortunately, well, this is a pretty good start. I think we got into the thick of talking about MOOCs. I've agreed to, revolutionize sexual harassment training.
I want to see what that badge looks like.
Or possibly, oh God. Or possibly become, unemployed. We'll see what happens. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
All right,
guys. Good. This was fun, guys. Again, thanks for having me. And let's maybe next week we'll talk about the same topic, maybe extend it a little bit, or we'll pick a new one. Maybe if anybody watches this online, they can send us some feedback. And
well, I was about to say, if we get some feedback, we can kind of open the next one with our opinions on their opinions on our opinions, and then we can move into the next topic.
There you go, and we can go back. And if Brian de Sablon is watching this too. We want your podcast back. Start drinking again.
Seriously, Brian and Judy, get the band back together.
Bring us the toolbar.
Right, bring us the toolbar.
I want to join in on that one.
Actually, honestly, I totally wouldn't mind guesting on Connie Malameds as well. But we'll talk about that next week. You guys.
Talk to you guys later.
Good. You guys have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.